Hi everyone, it's Ali back with another card making video. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful card using a layering stamp set and one single ink pad to get this beautiful rainbow effect of colours on the layering flower stamp. So here's two cards that I made using this technique, and it's a beautiful effect that you can get from just using the single stamp pad. The set that I'm using is the Altenew Peony Bouquet set, and it's a beautiful set. It just stamps up really lovely, and I just love the effect of the layering stamps that you can get with this set. And I'm just going to use the Kaleidocolor ink pad. It's baby powder, and Kaleidocolor ink pads have been around forever, and I remember when I first started stamping about 16 years ago, it was one of the first pads that I bought, not this particular colour but a different one, and they have just lasted for forever as well. They're great ink pads, and I've just rediscovered them and started to use them with these layering stamps, which is fantastic. And then I'm going to use an Avery L stamp set, the Hugs stamp set, for the word and the sentiment on the card as well. So here's the card, and as I said, you can get this beautiful rainbow effect starting from light and going to darker towards the back of that flower up there. And I've also used some clear embossing on top to give those darker colours in the flower a little bit more emphasis. So I just start with a piece of white cardstock. I use a fairly heavyweight cardstock just from my local office supply store. And I'm also using my Misty to get the flower stamp in the exact same position each time. It's brilliant for this sort of thing. I start with the fullest stamp set and my lightest colours on the Kaleidocolor pad. So I'm going to use the light end, the three colours at the lightest end of the Kaleidocolor pad to begin with. And I want the light end to be on the front of the flower, or the bottom of the flower petal. So I'm going to start with that lighter section of the stamp pad. I'm just going to stamp down lightly, tap away, and try not to move it too much, just ever so slightly across the stamp. And you often need to stamp this a couple of times to get a really good impression, and that's where the Misty comes in handy as well. I'm just restamping that to make sure it's got good coverage of ink. And then I'm going to turn the paper around and do the same thing so that I have two flowers. I'll just skip through doing that one. Okay, so here's my two base stamps. So I'm going to get the next layer of the flower, and I'm going to use the middle section of the pad this time to stamp the next layer of the flower. To position it, there's a couple of spots on the flower there and there that I use to line up my stamp set, and I find that really helps me get it in the right position each time. So then again, I'm going to use the middle section of this stamp pad, the colours in the middle. And I stamp that twice for each flower as well, so that I get a nice coverage of ink. And then do the other flower. So now I'm going to do the third layer of the flower, and this time I'm going to use the darkest end of the stamp pad. And again, I stamp it twice to get a good coverage of ink. And then turn the paper around and do the same on the other flower. So now I have my two flowers stamped, and I just wanted to give the darker colours a bit more emphasis. So I'm going to actually restamp the second layer of the stamp with Versamark ink and emboss it with clear embossing powder. And it just brings up those colours really beautifully, in the middle of the flower. So I'm just lining up that second layer of the flower and use my Versamark ink and clear embossing powder. You can ink up both of your flowers. The Versamark ink stays sticky for quite some time, so it will still be sticky enough to grab onto the embossing powder. Then, thanks to Jennifer Maguire, I have my embossing powders in these containers and a little hook on the lid to hold my spoon, which is really handy. And then just make sure I get good coverage with the embossing powder. And then I'm just going to heat that with my heat tool until it's all melted. Okay, so there's my flowers. Now I need to cut them out, and I have the dies for this set as well, so I'm going to use the dies to cut out these flowers. Now, a really handy hint that I did see on another YouTube video, sorry I can't remember who it was to use the negative of a die that you've already cut out to put around the flower to make sure all the white edging is even around the entire flower. If you have trouble lining up your dies, this is a great way to do it. And then you know that your die is sitting in the right position and the border around the flower is even on each side. And then I just run that through my Big Shot. And I've secured it with micropore tape there, so just be careful pulling it off so it doesn't take away any of the ink. Then I'm going to do the same to the other flower. That's both of the flowers die cut. And it gives a really even edge, as you can see when you line it up like that. It's a great hint. Now I'm going to just get a piece of craft card and just put my flowers where I think I would like them to go. And then I'm going to actually stamp the outline of this flower onto the craft card with Versamark ink, just so that when I'm stamping my leaves that are going to go behind the flowers, I know where the flowers are going to be sitting and I can position the leaves in the right position. So that's another handy hint, again, from watching YouTube. So I just do that with some Versamark ink. It doesn't have to be a clear impression, it's just to get a general idea of where your flowers are going to sit on the card. Just positioning the other one there. Again, stamp it up with Versamark. And now I know where the flowers are going to be in the card, so when I'm stamping my leaves around the edge, I know where to put them. I'm just going to stamp some of the leaves in just white Hero Arts ink, pigment ink. And I'm just using one layer of the leaves. I'm not using the multiple layers, I'm just using the single layer of the leaves. So now I know where my flowers are sitting. I can just go around and put the leaves in where I think they might look okay. That's the larger leaf that I've used there. And then I'm going to use the small flower that comes in the set next, and then the smaller leaf. So just about finished stamping all of my white flowers and leaves, and when that's done I'm just going to blast it with my heat gun just to make sure it's completely dry and that I don't smudge it when I'm attaching my flowers. So now I'm going to attach my flowers, and I know, well, I'm going to get my base card ready, so I'm just going to fold and score that. And cut my base card to the right size so that it fits nicely on the front of the card. Just cut that off screen with my cutter and then attach that with double-sided tape. I just use a double-sided tape from, actually this one's from Spotlight I think, which is the store here in Australia, and just attach that onto the front of the card. And then I know where my flowers go because I've got my Versamark imprint already stamped there, and I just want them to set up a little bit, so I'm going to pop them up with some 3D foam. Again, I think that packet of foam is from Spotlight. They're just quite small squares, which I like. And then just position that over the images that we've got with the versamark. And now I'm going to do my sentiment. And as I said, I'm using the Hugs stamp set from Avery Elle, and I love this stamp set too. It's just really versatile, and I love the script of the Hugs die and the word. Just going to die cut that out of black card, and I've got another piece of card to stamp my sentiment on. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment in white ink and heat emboss it with white embossing powder. And again, I'm going to use my Misty, that's my EK Tools powder tool, just to prevent the embossing powder from sticking to the card where I don't want it to stick. I'm just going to use my Misty to stamp the sentiment, because I find that it really helps get a nice, clear, even impression with small word stamps and small stamps. But I mean, the Misty is great for larger stamps as well, but just for my word stamps it's really, really good. And just white embossing powder. And I'll heat set that and then cut it out using my scalpel. I just find I've got more control over how big or small I want that edge around the words with my scalpel. I'll just finish off the cutting out with my scissors. And then I just need to attach that to the front of my card. I've just used my acetate that I've divided into thirds vertically and horizontally to get the placement of my sentiment, my words in the right place, just so it looks nice to the eye when you're looking at the card. I'm just going to pop up the sentiment with some black foam. And then I'm just going to glue on my Hugs words using my multimedia matte glue and my precision tip, which you buy separately. And that's the card. Just making sure that's stuck down. So I hope you like it, and if you have any of the Kaleidocolor ink pads, hopefully it inspires you to use them if you haven't used them in a while, same as me. So thanks for watching my video today. Please leave a comment or any suggestions below, and I'll see you next time.